The night my husband announced my death, I was standing 20 feet away from him.
I watched through the rain, streaked window of my father's house, as Daniel raised a glass to 200 guests and told them I had suffered a breakdown. He said I had left Boston without warning. He said he prayed I would find peace. Then my younger sister, Claire, slipped her hand into his. That was when I understood. They were not worried about me. They were celebrating because they believed they had erased me. 3 days earlier, I had been Evelyn Mercer, Chief Financial Officer of Mercer Restoration, the company my father built from one borrowed truck. I had a husband of 11 years, a beautiful brownstone in Beacon Hill, and a reputation for remembering every number I ever saw. By Friday night, my company email had been disabled. My bank accounts were frozen. My signature appeared on a resignation letter I had never written. Daniel had even filed an emergency petition, claiming I was mentally unstable. I should have been terrified. Instead, I stood inside the dark house where my father had raised us, listening to Daniel lie about me, and made a promise. If they wanted me dead, I would let them bury me. Then I would come back with the truth. It began with a phone call on Tuesday morning. Daniel said my father's attorney wanted to review a problem with the estate. My father, Thomas Mercer, had died 8 months earlier after falling down the basement stairs in this same house. The police called it an accident. I accepted that because grief makes simple answers feel merciful. When I reached the attorney's office, Daniel and Claire were already there. Claire's eyes were red, but she was not crying. A document waited on the table. It transferred my voting shares in Mercer Restoration to a family trust controlled by Daniel and Claire. Dad never discussed this with me, I said. Daniel touched my shoulder. You've been under pressure. Claire stared at the table. Just sign it, Evie. No one had called me Evie since childhood. I read the last page and saw a notary stamp dated 6 weeks before my father died. The signature looked like mine, but the capital E curved backward. My father had taught me to sign my name at our kitchen table. He always joked that my E looked like an open gate. This E was closed. I didn't sign this. Daniel's hand tightened on my shoulder. The attorney, Paul Hargrove, folded his hands. Evelyn. Perhaps you don't remember. I looked from my husband to my sister. They had rehearsed that sentence. I stood and left. At the office, my badge failed. Security escorted me upstairs while employees watched. In the boardroom, Daniel had placed prescription bottles beside my laptop. They carried my name, but I had never seen them. He spoke softly, as if kindness could make a cage feel comfortable. You need rest. I demanded a board meeting. He handed me my resignation letter instead. My signature was perfect this time. That frightened me more. The police were waiting when I arrived home. Daniel had reported that I threatened him. He showed them a recording of a woman screaming that she would destroy him. The voice sounded like mine, but the words were clipped together. I tried to explain, but Daniel gave the officers a tired, loving smile. He was calm. I was furious. That was all they needed to see. I spent the night in a hospital under observation. By morning, the company had announced my medical leave. By afternoon, Claire had been named interim CFO. A nurse named Rosa returned my coat before I left. In the pocket, I found a brass key and a note written in my father's block handwriting. If Tawaisa are confused, Geo home. Tichos rembars. My father had worn the same blue work shirts for 30 years. He wrote estimates in black marker and never used more words than necessary. I knew his handwriting as well as my own. The key was taped beneath the note. I did not return to Daniel. I rented a room under my mother's maiden name and called Marcus Reed, a former Mercer project manager. Daniel fired him shortly after Dad died, claiming he stole materials. Marcus answered on the third ring. "I knew you'd call," he said. "Why?" "Because your father told me you would. He also told me not to trust your husband." We met at a diner outside Worcester. Marcus looked older, with gray in his beard and a scar across one hand. He told me that before Dad died, he had discovered inflated invoices connected to a shell company called Northline Consulting. Millions had disappeared from restoration projects. Dad believed someone inside Mercer was preparing to sell the company after draining it. Why didn't he tell me? He tried. Every time he scheduled a meeting, Daniel changed it or Claire created some emergency. Marcus slid a photograph across the table. It showed Daniel and Paul Hargrove leaving a hotel with a man I recognized as Victor Sloan, the owner of our largest competitor. On the back, Dad had written, "Thr Min. Onacel, Fint, T Fiortage. Who took this?" "Your father." "When?" Marcus looked at me carefully. "The night before he died." The room seemed to tilt. My father had not fallen during a quiet evening at home. He had been investigating the people now trying to take his company. That evening, Daniel hosted the memorial fundraiser at Dad's house. It was supposed to benefit injured construction workers. I knew enough about company finances to suspect it was another performance. Marcus helped me enter through an old cellar door, hidden behind the garden wall. I stood in the dark kitchen, while guests praised Daniel's loyalty and Claire's courage. Then Daniel announced that I had left the state. Claire took his hand, and when she thought no one was watching, she kissed him. It was not the uncertain kiss of two frightened people. It was familiar. My husband and my sister had stolen my name, my company, and my sanity. Now I knew they had also stolen my marriage long before I noticed it was missing. I wanted to walk into that room and tear their beautiful lie apart. Instead, I touched the brass key in my pocket and went downstairs. My father's basement workshop smelled of sawdust and machine oil. Police photographs showed the place after his fall. I remembered the dark stain beside the stairs and the broken lamp on the floor. The brass key fit a lock hidden behind his tool cabinet. Inside was a narrow steel door. Behind it, I found a room I had never known existed. There was a desk, 4 monitors, boxes of company records, and a map covered with red pins. On the wall hung photographs of Daniel, Claire, Hargrove, and Victor Sloan. At the center was a photograph of me. Across my face, my father had written one sentence. Not target. C is tishiki. Part 2. Camo eft myft ftihe dark for several seconds. I could only stare at my own photograph. My father had known someone would come after me. He had built a secret room and filled it with evidence, yet he died before he could explain what any of it meant. The monitors would not start. Their power cable led into the wall, and the wall led to a locked metal box. My brass key opened the room, but not the box. On the desk sat an old cassette recorder. I pressed play. My father's voice filled the room. "Evelyn, if you're hearing this, they moved faster than I expected. Do not trust the obvious evidence. It was planted for you to find. Start with the blue house in Salem. Ask for June. Tell her the storm is coming." The tape clicked off. I heard footsteps above me. Daniel had left the party. I switched off my flashlight and pulled the steel door nearly closed. Through the gap, I saw his shoes descend the basement stairs. Claire followed. "She came here?" Daniel whispered. "That's impossible." The alarm registered the cellar door. Claire's voice trembled. "What if she found it?" Thomas never gave her the key. My fingers closed around the brass in my pocket. Daniel moved the tool cabinet. He tried the steel door, but I had locked it from inside. "Still sealed," he said. Claire exhaled. Then Daniel added, "We finished the sale Monday. After that, Evelyn can scream all she wants. Their footsteps faded. I waited 20 minutes before leaving. Outside, Marcus drove without headlights until we reached the main road. The blue house in Salem stood on a narrow street near the water. Its paint had faded to gray, and wind chimes knocked against the porch. An elderly black woman opened the door before I knocked. "The storm is coming," I said. She studied me. "You have Thomas's eyes." Her name was June Carter. She had been Mercer Restoration's first bookkeeper, and my father's closest friend before I was born. I remembered her vaguely from childhood, but Claire and I had been told she moved to Florida. June led us into a dining room covered with ledgers. "Your father found the theft 18 months ago," she said. "Daniel created Northline to move money out of Mercer. Hargrove hid the ownership. Victor Sloan planned to buy the weekend company for half its value." And Claire. June's silence answered first. "Your sister approved the false invoices." The betrayal felt physical, like cold water entering my lungs. June showed me copies of transfers, emails, and altered contracts. They proved fraud, but every document pointed to Daniel and Claire. None explained why Dad had called the evidence obvious, or why he had written "Findy the fo Urtage." Who else was involved? Your father never told me. He stopped trusting paper. Fajun handed me a small notebook. Dad had filled it with dates and single words. On the page for the night he died, he wrote, 700 Esloabis, 810 Teat fo Urth, 9 Thurhamave, 115 Evielwian K Milos Ou Kalanoj. I had spoken to Dad that night at 9:42. He called while I was preparing quarterly reports. He asked a strange question. "Do you remember the summer the library roof collapsed?" I laughed and said, "I remembered every invoice." I was 16 when Dad restored that old library. A subcontractor used cheap beams, and Dad caught him because the lumber codes did not match the purchase records. Numbers don't lie. Dad had told me then. People teach them how. On the phone, he asked me to repeat that sentence. I did. Then he said he loved me. At 10:36, Daniel called to say Dad had fallen. I opened Dad's notebook again. Beneath my name, the paper was indented. Someone had torn out the next page. Marcus shaded the page with a pencil. Letters appeared. Marcr la Barwa, BM 47. The old library was closed for renovation. Mercer Restoration held the contract, which gave Marcus access to the site plans. We entered after midnight through a service door. Beam 47 was in the original reading room. I climbed the scaffold and found a plastic tube, sealed inside a hollow wooden cap. The tube contained a flash drive and a silver cuff link. The cuff link carried the seal of the Massachusetts Lieutenant Governor, Richard Vail. Vail was not only a powerful politician. He had been my father's friend for 40 years. He spoke at Dad's funeral. He called me his goddaughter. The flash drive held security footage from a hotel parking garage. I watched Daniel hand Vail an envelope. Claire stood beside the car. Hargrove and Sloan were there too. The fourth man was Richard Vail. The next file was an audio recording. Vail's voice said, "Once Evelyn signs, the trust controls the land." Daniel answered, "And if she refuses? Then make sure no one believes her. The land, not the company." Mercer Restoration owns 16 acres along the Boston waterfront, including our oldest warehouse. On the books, the polluted property was worth $12 million. But a confidential transit plan could raise its value above $200 million. Vail would know the route before the public did. They were not draining Mercer merely to buy the company. They wanted the land beneath it. We copied everything. As we left, headlights swept across the windows. 2 black SUVs blocked the street. Marcus pushed me behind a stone column as men entered the building. We escaped through a maintenance tunnel that ended near the harbor. By the time we reached June's house, My hands were bleeding from rusted metal. June cleaned the cuts. "We have enough for the police," I said. "Local police?" she asked. Vale appointed half the people who would receive that evidence. She was right. We needed federal investigators. But even good evidence could disappear if the wrong person touched it first. Then the television in June's kitchen showed Daniel at a press conference. He stood beside Claire and announced that company funds were missing. "The evidence," he said, pointed to me. A warrant had been issued for my arrest. My photograph appeared on the screen. Daniel looked directly into the camera. "Evelyn," he said, "please come home." June turned off the television. My phone rang from an unknown number. When I answered, Claire whispered, "He knows you found the room. Why are you warning me?" She began to cry. "Because Daniel killed Dad," she said. "And I think I'm next. Party 3. My sister second, i.e. Claire wanted to meet alone. She chose a cemetery in Cambridge where our mother was buried. Rain darkened the stones, and bare branches scraped together above us. Claire stood beside Mom's grave, wearing a red coat I had given her for Christmas. For one foolish second, I remembered braiding her hair before school. Then I remembered her kissing my husband. "Tell me what happened to Dad." Claire said Daniel followed him home the night he died. Dad had discovered the waterfront plan and threatened to expose everyone. Daniel confronted him in the workshop. They argued near the stairs. "Daniel pushed him," she said. "I heard the fall. You were there." Her face broke. She had been waiting in Daniel's car. After Dad fell, Daniel called Hargrove instead of an ambulance. Hargrove arrived with a doctor who declared Dad dead. They removed papers and wiped the workshop. Claire helped them because Daniel promised it would protect her from the fraud investigation. "You helped cover up our father's death." I was scared. "You were sleeping with my husband." She closed her eyes. "For 2 years. Some betrayals explode. Others arrive quietly and rearrange the meaning of every memory. Business trips, late meetings, Claire's sudden interest in my marriage. Daniel insisting she join family vacations because she was lonely. I asked why she had turned on him now. Daniel had created documents blaming all fraudulent transfers on Claire. Once the sale closed, she would be arrested or killed. She had found a life insurance policy he purchased on her. "Help me," she said. I wanted to tell her she deserved whatever came next. But anger is not a plan. "Can you access Daniel's office?" She nodded. I gave her a tiny camera and told her to photograph the original trust documents and sale contract. If she wanted my protection, she had to earn it. Claire hugged me before leaving. I kept my arms at my sides. That night, Marcus and I examined the hospital records from my forced evaluation. The doctor who signed the hold had received payments from Northline. The prescription bottles found in my office came from his clinic. Every part of my collapse had been designed. But there was one mistake. The resignation letter used my electronic signature at 8014 Tuesday morning. Building records showed I entered Hargrove's office at 8007. The signature certificate came from my company laptop, supposedly sitting in my office across town. Someone had cloned my security credentials. Only 3 people had authorization to do that: Daniel, our technology director, and me. Our technology director, Aaron Pike, had vanished 2 days after Dad died. Marcus located his car in long-term parking at Logan Airport, but no airline had a record of him leaving. June searched old payment records and found monthly transfers to Aaron's wife through a Mercer vendor. We visited her in New Hampshire. She opened the door holding a baby and told us Aaron was dead. His body had been found in a burned car in Vermont, identified as a drifter. She recognized his watch in a news photograph, but stayed silent because someone left $50,000 and a picture of her baby on her porch. Before Aaron died, he mailed her a memory card. She gave it to me. The card contained a video Aaron recorded in his office. He explained that Daniel ordered him to clone my credentials and install hidden microphones in Dad's house. Aaron refused. Later, Claire visited him and offered twice the money. Then he said something that changed everything. Evelyn thinks Thomas built the secret room. He didn't. I built it with Marcus Reed. I turned toward Marcus. He did not look surprised. My father had discovered the scheme months earlier and asked Marcus and Aaron to create the room. But Aaron believed Marcus leaked its location to Daniel. The video ended with Aaron saying, "If I disappear, ask Marcus why Thomas was still alive when the doctor arrived." I stepped away from him. Marcus raised both hands. "I can explain. Were you at the house?" "Yes." "Was my father alive?" His eyes filled. "Yes." Marcus had arrived through the cellar after Daniel pushed Dad. He found him breathing but badly injured. Dad refused to let Marcus call local police. He believed Vale controlled the response and ordered Marcus to remove the final evidence first. "You left him there." "I went to get the drive from the library. When I came back, he was dead. I struck Marcus across the face. He accepted it. I have hated myself every day," he said. I could not forgive him, not then. But his guilt sounded different from Daniel's careful lies. Guilt is messy. It repeats details no one asked for. A lie is polished. Claire sent a message, "I have EIT. Dinil s'espèce mes me, Cloma." The location was a Mercer warehouse near the waterfront. Every instinct warned me away, but if she had the sale contract, we needed it. Marcus and I entered through separate doors. The warehouse was empty except for Claire's red coat lying on the floor. My phone rang. Daniel's voice echoed through the building. "You always did come running when Claire cried." The doors locked. Gas hissed from pipes along the wall. Marcus found Claire tied behind a stack of lumber. As he cut her free, flames rose near the loading bay. Daniel had recreated Aaron's death. Only this time he intended to burn all three of us. We climbed to the roof and crossed an old crane arm to the next building. Claire froze halfway. Flames rolled from the windows beneath her. I could have left her. For one terrible moment, I wanted to. Then I crawled back, caught her wrist, and pulled her across. Firefighters arrived as the warehouse roof collapsed. Daniel watched from a car across the street. Our eyes met before he drove away. Claire had hidden the camera in her coat lining. It contained photographs of the sale contract, but the signature page was missing. It also contained a video she never meant to record. In it, Claire stood in Daniel's office and spoke to someone on the phone. "Evelyn still trusts Marcus," she said. "When this is over, I want my full share." The call had happened 2 hours before she warned me about the warehouse. Claire had not escaped Daniel. She had led him to us, and I had just risked my life to save her again. Part 4. THET rap YTMI NAM. ONIT I did not confront Claire. That was the hardest decision I made. Rage wanted noise. Revenge required silence. I let her believe the camera had burned. I thanked her for stealing the contract and promised that I would protect her. She cried in my arms with such convincing relief that I finally understood how she had fooled me for years. Claire did not lie because she was afraid. She lied because she believed love made other people easy to use. We had 4 days before the board voted on the sale to Sloan. Daniel needed my shares, but the forged trust gave him control unless I appeared in court. If I appeared too early, Vale could bury the evidence and Daniel could have me arrested, so I designed a different kind of return. June contacted Special Agent Lena Ortiz, a federal investigator who had once prosecuted a contractor bribery case against Vale's allies. Ortiz agreed to meet, but she warned that recordings and copied files might not be enough. We needed the original financial server, or a confession tied directly to the waterfront deal. The server was in Mercer headquarters. Claire still had access. I told her the hidden room contained Dad's original ledger and asked her to steal it for me. There was no ledger. The message was bait for Daniel. 2 hours later, motion sensors showed someone entering Dad's house. Daniel and Hargrove opened the secret room while federal agents recorded them. They removed boxes, discussed destroying the real numbers, and complained that Claire had failed to control me. It was valuable, but Vale was absent. I needed all 4. The next morning, I sent each of them a different message. To Daniel, I wrote that Claire had offered to testify against him. To Claire, I wrote that Daniel had signed the sale contract without giving her shares. To Hargrove, I wrote that Vale planned to blame the forged trust on him. To Vale, I sent 3 words, BM47 survive vivid. Fear did what friendship never could. They turned on one another within hours. Hargrove called June, believing she represented me, and offered documents for immunity. Claire stole Daniel's phone. Daniel broke into Hargrove's office. Vale ordered Sloan to delay the sale. But Sloan refused because the public transit announcement was expected the following week. Then Daniel made his own move. He released private videos of me crying after my father's funeral. Edited clips made it look as if I believed people were following me. News stations repeated his claim that I was dangerous and delusional. For 1 hour, I nearly surrendered. I watched strangers discuss my sanity as entertainment. Former friends posted prayers beneath my photograph. Employees I had promoted said they always noticed something unstable about me. June closed the laptop. Your father knew numbers, she said. But you know people. What do people remember? A story. Then stop defending yourself and tell them the right one. The board meeting would be streamed to investors because of the proposed sale. Daniel planned to use it as his final victory. I decided to use the same stage. Claire agreed to bring me into headquarters through the underground garage. She believed I planned to expose Daniel and spare her. Daniel believed Claire was bringing me there, so he could force me to sign a confession. Both thought they were trapping me. At 8:30 Monday morning, I entered the building wearing the navy suit my father bought me when I became CFO. Claire led me to the executive conference room. Daniel waited with 2 security guards and a court officer. I'm glad you came home, he said. I placed my hands on the table. I'm ready to sign. He dismissed the guards. On the table was a confession stating that I had embezzled company funds, forged the trust, and framed Daniel during a mental breakdown. Sign and this ends, he said. What happens to Claire? He smiled at her. Claire knows I love her. I looked at my sister. Ask him about the insurance policy. Her face changed. Daniel lunged for my bag, but Claire stepped between us. They began shouting. Years of secret resentment poured into the room. Claire accused him of using her. Daniel called her weak and said she had begged to replace me. You told me Evelyn would die in the hospital, Claire screamed. The room went silent. Daniel looked at the ceiling camera. The red light was on. The board stream started 10 minutes ago, I said. Daniel ran for the control panel, but Marcus had locked the system remotely. On screens throughout headquarters, employees and investors watched. I opened the conference room doors. Hargrove and Sloan were outside with Vale. My separate messages had driven all of them to the same place, each hoping to control the damage before the vote. Federal agents sealed the exits. Vale remained calm. This is theater, Evelyn. Nothing more. You're right, I said. The evidence is somewhere else. His eyes moved toward my bag. That tiny glance was enough. He ordered Daniel not to touch it, revealing that he knew what he pretended not to know. Then Hargrove began talking. He said Vale designed the land scheme. Sloane accused Hargrove of forging signatures. Claire blamed Daniel for Dad's death. 4 powerful people destroyed one another while the country watched. But Daniel was not finished. He grabbed Claire and pressed a letter opener to her throat. "End the stream," he told me. Claire's eyes found mine. Once again, my sister expected me to save her. I stepped closer. "Let her go. Daniel. You'll lose her." I looked at Claire and thought of Dad on the basement floor. I thought of the warehouse flames and the phone call she made before leading us there. Then I said, "I lost my sister 2 years ago." Claire went still. Agents moved while Daniel was distracted. They pulled him away and forced him to the floor. As they handcuffed him, he stared up at me. "You think you won?" "No," I said. "I think you finally told the truth where everyone could hear it." Vale, Hargrove, Sloane, and Daniel were arrested. Claire was taken separately after Agent Ortiz showed her the warehouse recording and the payment trail. The boardroom emptied. On the table, beside the unsigned confession, Daniel's stolen phone began to ring. The screen displayed one name, Marcius, Parfai. The last tier HINTHES. I answered Daniel's phone. Marcus stood across the room, pale and silent. The call was not coming from the phone in his hand. It was scheduled through an encrypted service. A recorded message played. "Daniel, the evidence is where we agreed. Evelyn cannot know what Thomas chose." It was Marcus's voice. After everything, there was still one final lie. Federal agents separated us. Marcus asked to speak to me, but I refused until Ortiz searched every account connected to him. The truth took 3 days. Dad had discovered the waterfront scheme 18 months before his death, but by then Mercer Restoration was already failing. Several major projects had hidden losses. Without the waterfront land, the company would collapse and hundreds of employees would lose their pensions. Vale offered Dad a bargain: cooperate with the secret land sale, and Vale would direct public contracts to Mercer. Dad refused. Marcus, desperate to save the workers, made his own agreement with Daniel. He pretended to help move the waterfront deal forward while feeding information to Dad. The recorded message was part of that deception. But Marcus had hidden something from me. When he found Dad alive after the fall, Dad did not simply order him to save the evidence. He made Marcus promise not to call an ambulance until the final drive was safe. Dad believed the arriving doctor worked for Vale. He believed that if he entered the hospital alive, the evidence would disappear and I would be blamed. "He chose the company over his life," I said. Marcus shook his head. "He chose you. He said the evidence had to survive long enough to clear your name." I wanted that answer to comfort me. It did not. My father had spent his life protecting everyone. In the end, he made one more sacrifice without asking whether the people who loved him could bear it. Marcus gave Ortiz the last item Dad entrusted to him, the key to the metal power box inside the secret room. I returned to the house alone. The fundraiser decorations were gone. Dust covered the kitchen counters. In the basement, I opened the metal box and powered the monitors. My father appeared on the center screen. He looked tired but alive. "Hello, Evie," he said. Hearing my childhood name in his voice broke something in me. He explained the losses, the land scheme, and the danger surrounding us. Then he told me why my photograph hung in the center of the wall. "They think the company is the prize," he said. "It isn't. A company is paper trucks and promises. You are the key because people trust you with the truth, even when the truth costs them." He admitted that he had made mistakes. He trusted Vale too long. He ignored warning signs in Daniel Because Daniel made me happy. He treated Claire like a child and taught her that consequences belong to other people. Then he leaned toward the camera. Do not save Mercer, because it has our name. Save what deserves saving. Let the rest burn. The final file contained the complete original ledger and Dad's signed testimony. It proved that I had objected to the false invoices months before the fraud began. It also showed that Daniel had diverted employee pension funds. That theft became the heart of the federal case. The trials lasted 14 months. Daniel was convicted of conspiracy, fraud, attempted murder, and manslaughter for Dad's death. He received 38 years in prison. Richard Vale resigned before he was convicted of bribery and racketeering. Hargrove lost his law license and accepted a plea deal. Victor Sloan's company collapsed under the investigation. Claire pleaded guilty to fraud, evidence tampering, and conspiracy. She testified against Daniel and received 7 years. Before sentencing, she wrote me 12 letters. I opened only the last. She said she had spent her life believing Dad loved me more. Every achievement of mine felt like something stolen from her. When Daniel offered attention, power, and the chance to become me, she accepted. She wrote, I know sorry cannot give you back what I took. Offer once, my sister told the truth. I did not answer. Forgiveness is not the same as reopening a door. Sometimes peace means leaving it locked. Mercer Restoration entered bankruptcy protection. Investors expected me to rescue it, but I remembered Dad's instruction. I sold the waterfront land through a transparent public auction after the transit route was announced. It brought $246 million. I could have rebuilt the company and placed my name back on the building. Instead, I paid every employee pension in full. I settled the honest vendor's dad had been unable to pay. I created a fund for workers injured on unsafe construction sites. Then I sold the remaining equipment to Marcus and a group of employees for $1. They renamed the company Beacon Restoration. Marcus offered me half the ownership. I declined. I eventually forgave him, but forgiveness did not make us partners. It simply allowed us to speak about Dad without anger sitting between us. The newspapers called my decision foolish. They calculated how much wealth I had surrendered. They did not understand that revenge is not always taking everything from the people who hurt you. Sometimes revenge is proving you never needed what they stole. I kept the old house. For months, I could not enter the basement. Then one Saturday morning, I opened every window and began cleaning. I removed the photographs from the secret room. I packed the ledgers for the federal archive. I left Dad's tools exactly where he placed them. In the kitchen, beneath a loose floorboard, I found one more envelope. It contained 2 photographs. The first showed Claire and me as children on the library scaffold, wearing plastic hard hats. I was holding a measuring tape. Claire was laughing because hers had snapped back and hit Dad's boot. The second showed Dad standing outside the first Mercer truck. On the back, he had written Aolas, is not T Wallos. ITS umamens tru undi tm. I sat on the floor and cried. Not the frightened tears Daniel had shown the world, and not the furious tears I had hidden from Claire. These tears belonged only to me. A year later, I turned the house into the Thomas Mercer Center for Financial Justice. We offered free accountants and attorneys to workers whose wages or pensions had been stolen. June became chairwoman of the board. Agent Ortiz trained our volunteers to preserve evidence. The old secret room became a secure archive. On opening day, more than 300 people filled the garden. I gave no grand speech. I told them that truth often arrives late. It may come in a notebook, a bank record, a frightened confession, or a voice from someone we thought we had lost. But late truth still matters if someone is brave enough to carry it into the light. After the guests left, I walked through the quiet rooms. For years, I thought revenge would feel like watching Daniel lose his freedom or Claire lose the life she tried to steal from me. Those moments brought satisfaction, but they did not heal me. Healing came when an elderly carpenter entered our center with proof that his employer had stolen his retirement. It came when our attorneys recovered every dollar. It came when he hugged me and said he could finally go home without being afraid. That was when I understood what Dad had tried to teach me. People can forge your signature. They can poison your reputation. They can take your chair, your money, your marriage, and even your place inside your own family. But a name is not something other people give you. It is the truth you choose to live after their lies are finished. Daniel announced my death while I stood 20 feet away. He was wrong. I had not come back from the dead. I had come back from being silent. And in the house that remembered my name, the truth finally learned to speak with my voice. THEND